Since humans began to search for answers about life and the universe, words have had a special place in our beliefs. They are not just sounds that we make. They carry meanings, intentions, and sometimes a power that transcends the human. But what if I told you that there are 7 words that, according to tradition, come directly from God? 7 words that not only speak to the ear, but reach the soul, resonating in the deepest corners of our being. These words are not a simple enigma. They are a key, a hidden mystery that promises to transform those who discover them and repeat them with faith. However, to understand this power, you must first face a great truth. The greatest change does not come from outside, but from within. And these words are the first step to start it. The interesting thing here is that it is not a visible, tangible, or immediate power. These words are not going to solve your problems as if they were a magic wand, but they can open a path inside you. Because, let's be honest, many times we live trapped in the noise of everyday life, disconnected from ourselves, as if we forget what really matters. And here comes the real mystery. Why 7? Why not 8 or 3? The number 7 has a symbolic connection in virtually all cultures and religions. It is the number of perfection, of totality. It represents a complete cycle, a balance between the material and spiritual worlds. So what can these 7 words do in your life? A lot, if you dare to really listen to them. Imagine for a moment that you are in a quiet place, repeating these words. You say them, you feel them, and then you stay silent. In that moment, what seems empty is filled with something you can't describe with words. That is the true power. Silence is not the end, but the beginning. It is where these words find their echo, resonating deep within you. It is as if they are a calling, a connection that has been waiting to be activated. But here is an important detail. It is not enough to repeat them without thinking. These words require intention, faith, and above all, a willingness to change. And now ask yourself, are you ready to discover what those words are? Beyond the mystery, beyond the doubts, these words are a gift, a bridge to something greater. It doesn't matter what you believe in or what you're searching for. What matters is being willing to open your heart and let these words do their work. Because in the end, the divine does not need explanations. It just needs space to manifest itself. The number 7 has a special weight in the history of humanity. It is no coincidence that it appears again and again in different contexts. From the creation of the world in 7 days to the 7 colors of the rainbow and the 7 musical notes, this number has always represented something complete, perfect, even magical. But when we talk about the sacred, 7 has a much deeper. It is the number that unites the divine with the human, the eternal with the temporal. It is as if God himself had chosen it to remind us that everything has a purpose and an order. So if we talk about 7 words given by God, what can we expect from them? What connection do they have with us? First, you have to understand something important. Words are not just sounds. In many spiritual traditions, words are considered tools of creation. In the Bible, for example, God created the world with the words, "Let there be light." This tells us something powerful. Words don't describe reality, they shape it. And if these 7 words come from God, their purpose is not only for you to repeat them, but for them to awaken something in you. Because the true power of these words is not outside, but inside. They are like seeds that need to be planted in your soul, and silence is the soil where they can grow. But back to number 7. Why is it so important? Think about this. The cycles of life move around him. 7 days to complete a week. 7 notes that create all the music we know. Even in the spiritual, we find the 7 gifts of the Holy Spirit, the 7 virtues, the 7 seals of the apocalypse. 7 is everywhere, reminding us that life is balance, that everything has a beginning and an end. Therefore, these words are not a whim. They are part of a much larger plan, a plan that invites us to find that balance in our lives. Now, imagine the impact of these words on you. You don't need to understand everything right away. You just need to let them act. Repeating them, reflecting on them, and then remaining silent is not an empty ritual. It is an act of faith. It is trusting that the divine is always at work, even when we don't see it. And here's the key point. These words aren't a magic bullet, but they can be the start of real change. Because when you connect with the sacred, something in you begins to align with what really matters. We live in a world full of noise. From the moment we wake up until we fall asleep, we are surrounded by sounds, words, distractions. But what happens when we leave all that aside? What happens when we repeat something as simple as 7 words and then go silent? I'm telling you right now, it's not easy. Silence can be uncomfortable, even scary at first. But it's also where the magic happens, because it is there, in that seemingly empty space, where we begin to hear what really matters.
Repeating these words is only the first step. It's like opening a door, but what you find on the other side depends on your willingness to listen. And here's the funny thing. It's not just about listening with your ears, but with your heart. In the silence, you begin to notice things that previously went unnoticed. Maybe it's an idea, a feeling of peace, or even an emotion you didn't know you had. What matters is that these words do not act alone.
They are an invitation, a reminder that the divine is always near, waiting for us to stop and pay attention. The most incredible thing is that you don't need to be a spiritual person to feel the impact of this. Silence has universal power. It's like a mirror that reflects who you really are. And when you combine that with the right words, something inside you begins to change. You may not notice it right away, but over time, that seed begins to grow. And what seemed to be just a moment of calm becomes the beginning of something much bigger. So here's the challenge. Do you dare to try? You have nothing to lose and everything to gain. Because in the end, the true power of these words is not in them themselves, but in what they awaken in you. And that, my friend, is something only you can discover. Write in the comments, "I accept my purpose." Subscribe to the channel and tell the universe that you are ready to receive everything that belongs to you. The 7 words are not a recent invention or a concept that emerged randomly. Throughout history, different cultures and religions have spoken of sacred words, revelations that come at key moments to guide, heal, or transform. But when we say that these 7 words come from God, we enter a territory where the human and the divine meet. Where do these words come from? Are they written in some ancient text? Or are they something that simply comes to those who are ready to receive them? Many believe these words are a hidden gift in Scripture, hidden messages that are only revealed through meditation, faith, and spiritual openness. Others think that they are not in any book, but in the human heart, as if God had planted them there from the beginning, waiting for someone to discover them. Either way, these words have a clear purpose, to remind us that we are not alone, that there is something bigger guiding us, even when we don't understand it. Think about it for a moment. In every spiritual tradition, words play a crucial role. Mantras, prayers, hymns, they all have something in common. They connect us with something greater. But these 7 words are not just any prayer. They are a personal, unique message. They are not to fill an external void, but to transform the world within you. And this is where silence becomes even more important, because after repeating them, you need to let them do their job. You don't need to understand how they work, just trust that they do. So where do these words come from? We may never know for sure, but what is important is not its origin, but its effect. Because in the end, it doesn't matter if you find them in a sacred text, in a moment of introspection, or as a whisper in your mind. What matters is how they transform you, how they remind you that there is always a path to the divine, even in the midst of chaos. Repeating these 7 words is not just a mechanical act. It's not something you do for the sake of doing. It is an act of intention, of delivery. That is, I'm ready to change. I'm ready to listen. And that, although it seems simple, can be the most difficult thing you do in your life. Because we live surrounded by noise, distractions that keep us disconnected from what really matters. Repeating these words is like turning off that noise for a moment and returning to the center, to who you really are. But how can something so simple change your life? The key is in repetition and the silence that comes after. When you repeat something with intention, you are reprogramming your mind. You are sending a message to the universe and to yourself. This is what I want. This is what I believe. It's like sowing a seed. At first, you may not see anything, but over time, something starts to grow inside you. A new way of thinking, feeling, living. True change does not happen overnight. It's a process. At first, you may feel doubt or even resistance, but if you persevere, you will start to notice small changes. Maybe it's a sense of calm that you didn't have before. Maybe it's a clarity that appears in the middle of a difficult time. Or maybe it's something much bigger, like a complete transformation in how you see the world and your place in it. What I can assure you is this: repeating these words with faith and then remaining silent is not an empty act. It is a call to the divine, a way to open yourself to something much bigger than yourself. And when you do, the change doesn't just happen within you, it begins to reflect in everything around you. Because when you change, the world changes too. Sometimes the most powerful words come not from books or speeches, but from the experiences of people like you and me. People who one day decided to try something new, something out of the ordinary, and found a transformation they never expected. And in the case of these 7 words, the testimonies are many. There are those who found them in a moment of desperation, when they felt that everything was lost. Others used them as a daily tool, a constant practice that gave them strength and clarity. A story that always resonates is that of a woman who, in the midst of a personal crisis, decided to try this method. She had nothing to lose, according to her. For days, he repeated the words every morning and every night, always observing a few minutes of silence afterwards. At first, I didn't feel anything, but little by little he began to notice changes. The anxiety that had consumed her for months began to dissipate. She began to make decisions with more confidence, to feel more connected to herself and her purpose. In his own words, "I don't know if it was God, the words or the silence, but something changed in me." And just like this story, there are many more. A young man who found hope in the midst of depression. An elderly person who discovered a new peace at the end of his life. No matter who you are or where you are, these words seem to have a universal effect. But there is something that all these stories have in common: commitment. It's not about doing this once and hoping for a miracle. It is a practice, a way of living, a way of opening yourself to change and the divine. So if you've ever wondered if something so simple can really make a difference, these stories are proof that it can. Not because words have magic in themselves, but because they invite you to connect with something that has always been there. Your ability to transform your life from within. The biggest barrier to feeling the power of these words is not outside of us, but inside. It's that internal noise that we all carry. Do you know what I'm talking about? That voice that won't shut up, that questions everything, that fills you with doubts. That constant dialogue that, without realizing it, disconnects you from what really matters. Trying to repeat these 7 words and remain silent may seem easy, but the difficult thing is not the act itself, but overcoming the noise that tells you, "This is no use. Why are you wasting your time? Nothing is going to change." That noise is not your enemy. It's part of you. But it is also a reflection of fears and patterns that you have accumulated throughout your life. The real challenge with these words is not in pronouncing them, but in learning to listen beyond the noise. When you sit in silence, it is as if you open a door to a room full of echoes. At first, these echoes are chaotic, confusing, but if you stay there, if you let the words do their work, the chaos begins to calm down. Little by little, you find clarity. The interesting thing is that this process is not about silence the noise, but rather about recognizing it. To look him in the face and say, "It's okay that you're here, but I'm not going to let you control me." It's like training a muscle. At first it's hard, but over time you start to distinguish between what is noise and what is truth. And in the midst of all that, you begin to hear something deeper, a voice that has always been there, but that the noise didn't let you perceive. That is the power of silence. It is not a void. It is not the absence of words. It is a space where the divine can speak, where those 7 words find their echo and begin to resonate within you. And when you learn to listen, something changes, because the noise no longer controls you. You start to control the noise. Write in the comments, "I accept my purpose," subscribe to the channel, and tell the universe that you are ready to receive everything that belongs to you. Imagine this. You have repeated all 7 words. You have let each one resonate within you. Now you are silent. What happens at that moment? At first, you may not feel anything, maybe just a little discomfort, because silence takes us out of our comfort zone. But if you stay there, something starts to happen. It's as if an unexpected calm begins to envelop your entire being. And in that calm, something appears that you cannot explain in words, a feeling of presence, of connection. That moment, although it may seem small, is gigantic, because that's where the real transformation happens. It's as if the words you repeated had opened a door, and the silence allowed something new to enter. It is not a change that you can always see or measure. Sometimes it's as subtle as a different thought, a changing emotion, a decision you make more clearly. But I assure you that something changes. Many people describe this moment as an encounter with the divine, but you don't need to be religious to feel it. It doesn't matter what you call it: God, the universe, your inner being. The important thing is that in that moment you realize that you are not alone. It's like a part of you that was always asleep finally woke up. And here's the most beautiful thing. This moment doesn't end when you open your eyes or go back to your routine. What happens in silence stays with you. It's like a spark that ignites something inside you. And with each time you repeat this process, that spark becomes a fire. A fire that illuminates your path, that gives you strength, clarity, and peace. In the end, this journey is not just about repeating words or being silent. It's about something much deeper, finding your way to the divine. Because although these 7 words are powerful, their true purpose is to lead you to connect with something bigger than yourself. That something can be God, the universe, or even your own essence. The important thing is that these words are not the destination, but the bridge. The wonderful thing about this path is that it is unique for each person. No one else can walk it for you. These words are yours, your silence is yours, and the connection you find is completely personal. It doesn't matter if someone else repeats them and doesn't feel the same way. What matters is what they mean to you, because in the end, the divine is not measured with rules or formulas. It is felt, it is lived, it is experienced. And the best of all is that this is not a process that ends. Every time you repeat the words and stay silent, you discover something new, maybe a message, a response, or just a moment of peace in the midst of chaos. But there is always something more. There is always one more step on this path. So here's the question. Are you ready to start this journey? Because you don't need anything special, any sacred place or complicated ritual. Everything you need is already within you. The words, the silence, and that divine spark that has always been waiting for the right moment to light up. Today could be that moment. Repeating the 7 words and remaining silent is just the beginning. It's like planting a seed inside you. But what really matters is how you decide to care for that seed so that it grows. This process is not about an isolated moment, but about a continuous transformation. Because when you start connecting with the divine, it doesn't just change what you feel. It changes how you act, how you think, how you relate to the world. True transformation is not measured in immediate miracles, but in those small steps you take each day. Maybe you now face a problem that seemed overwhelming to you more calmly. You may discover that you have more patience, more clarity, more strength. And the best thing is that this connection does not disappear when the silence ends. It becomes a part of you, something you carry with you every moment. But there is something even deeper. You begin to see life with different eyes. The things you once took for granted, you now value. What once seemed chaotic now has purpose. Because these words, this silence, remind you that everything is connected, that there is order even in disorder. And when you live from that perspective, everything changes. So beyond words, this process is an invitation to live in a different way. It's not about perfection or having all the answers. It's about trusting, being present, allowing the divine to act in your life in its own way. Because when you let that spark grow, you not only light your path, but you become a light for others.